this day. We turn to two readings. The first is from the prophet Isaiah. It is seldom possible to look toward the mountains on a clear day anywhere and not be awestruck by the beauty and the strength and the grandeur of those holy mountains. It is this vision of unmatched strength and grandeur that the prophet invites us to consider as we imagine God's holy mountain. The mountain is the New Jerusalem, where the former things of violence, death, greed, threat, and exile are forgotten, and a new possibility is granted. We then hear the words from the psalmist, Psalm 48, which joins in the declaration of God's presence in earth, alive in the strength of Mount Zion, which is the place from which God's presence and love shine forth. Let's take a moment then to hear what the Holy Spirit has to say to us on this day. And thanks for Jen for reading.
Good morning. Reading from the New Revised Standard Version, hear these words from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 65, beginning with verse 16. The glorious new creation. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth, and former things shall not be remembered or come to mind. But be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating. For I am about to create Jerusalem as a joy, and its people as a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight in my people. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it, or the cry of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person who does not live all the life. For one who dies at 100 years will be considered a youth, and one who falls short of 100 will be considered accursed. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be, and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain or bear children for calamity, for they shall be offspring blessed by the Lord, and their descendants as well. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox, but the serpent, its food shall be dust. They shall not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, says the Lord. Here ends this reading. Reading from the New Revised Standard Version, hear these words from Psalm 48, beginning with verse 1. The glory and strength of Zion. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, the holy mountain, beautiful in elevation, is the joy of all the earth. Mount Zion, in the far north, the city of the great King. Within its citadels, God has shown a sure defense. Then the kings assembled. They came on together. As soon as they saw it, they were astounded. They were in panic. They took to flight. Trembling, it took hold of them there. Pains as of a woman in labor, as when an east wind shatters the ships of Tarshish. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God, which God establishes forever. We ponder your steadfast love, O God, in the midst of your temple. Your name, O God, like your praise, reaches to the ends of the earth. Your right hand is filled with victory. Let Mount Zion be glad. Let the towns of Judah rejoice because of your judgments. Walk about Zion, go all around it, count its towers, consider well its ramparts. Go through its citadels, that you may tell the next generation that this is God, our God forever and ever. God will be our guide forever. Here ends this reading.
Earth has hope in what is possible when all creation lives in partnership with God. This is our final Sunday in this season of creation, and today we heard a sacred vision of God's holy mountain. A vision that offers us a path of hope for today and for a future and calls us to live justly and in partnership with God. God continues to call us even as we acknowledge our involvement in the climate crisis. How can we care for Earth? And how can we make God's vision a reality? Perhaps we need to traverse the mountain from a different angle. We know God is always creating something new. Through the past 3 weeks, we know that God does not abandon God's people. As plants and animals grow and roam across the earth, the ecosystems have ways of nurturing new things and new bodies and new organisms. For I am about to create a new thing. I am about ready to create a new heaven and a new earth, says the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah knows how wonderful a life can be in God's creation and God's vision. Do we? We are faced with so much. We are faced with the plight of migrants seeking asylum from Central America, refugees from Afghanistan and the end of a 20-year war, and a pandemic that rages on because the science and study of vaccines have become political. God's vision in this time and space includes all this, and yet God continues to see delight in God's people. Do we? We are faced with sea levels rising, temperatures increasing, rain and snow in massive amounts, and fires that engulf whole forests due to drought. God's vision in this time and space includes all this, and yet God continues to envision a world where a wolf and lamb shall feed together, and nothing will hurt or destroy this holy mountain. Are we able to see this before it is too late? Are we able to make this vision a reality? I want us to traverse this mountain from a different angle in hopes that we end up on top with a vision to see and the energy to move. And one way to go about doing so is through a children's book that I'd like to share with you this morning. And it is entitled The Scribble Stones, and it's written and illustrated by Diane Alber. And it's a lovely story about a stone finding its way. So let's take a moment to read, shall we? This story is about one happy stone who was gray and round and rarely alone. He lived with the others all stacked in a pile and waited calmly with a large, friendly smile. Each stone had a purpose, but it wasn't known yet. One would be landscaping, and some a stone pet. There were so many things that the stones could be, the hardest part was just waiting to see. Stone knew that his purpose would brighten someone's day. He just wasn't sure how or in what kind of way. He imagined the things that he might soon become as he watched all the stones get picked one by one. But his happy face slowly turned to a frown as he watched the tall piles start to dwindle on down. And although he was worried, he tried not to care until it was clear he was the last one there. Then it finally happened. Stone was quickly picked up. He was placed on a desk next to a very large cup. As Stone looked around, he thought, "This is great!" But he soon discovered he was a dull paperweight. I'm supposed to bring happiness, not hold paper still. There must be a mistake. This just can't be my skill. Then all of a sudden, a splatter flew high, and then some bright scribbles came wiggling on by. They were headed right toward the short paper stack, and they filled up the paper on the front and on the back. They were all making art, and it was happening so fast, Stone feared that the paper would simply not last. He couldn't believe just how much the pile grew. Then he heard a small cry from the fun splatter crew. We knew that this pile was getting too small. There is no more paper. We have used it all. The scribbles all cried. They now saw it too. This is a disaster. Oh, what shall we do? Stone didn't want the scribbles to cry, so he thought of something that they all could try. He slowly rolled down the very large pile and said, I know how to make you smile. I know I'm not paper, but I like art too. Do you think you could spare some red, yellow, and blue? They loved the idea and could not wait to start. Scribble began making a happiness heart. Splatter then painted some pale baby blue. Another scribble added a sunny gold hue. It didn't take long before more stones showed up, and soon the line grew behind that large red cup. To Stone's surprise, he was picked up once more. He had never heard of this happening before. More art was added, and he was on his way to become a small gift to brighten someone's day. Nearby, another stone's journey had begun. He was spreading such happiness and having great fun. Every time he traveled, someone added their part, sometimes just a scribble, sometimes fancy art. With each new layer, there was a story to share. And soon scribble stones were seen everywhere. They traveled the planet. It was quite an event, bringing happiness and fun wherever they went. Now, thousands of stones inspire creativity each day, all because of a paperweight with a will and a way. Michael, would you like to take your book back with you? Thank you for letting me borrow it. You've got a great little library of things. Through this story, we are encouraged to find our purpose, our vision, our holy mountain. And when there's a will, there's a way. There's so much change around us, we sometimes forget to pause and listen to God's holy mountain that inspires vision and creation, and to take care of that vision and that creation. We know that all things are possible with God. We do not have to settle as a paperweight, though they are pretty handy. We are more than just some kind of fragment of God's imagination or image or vision. We are God's creative instruments at work. Mountaintop experiences are a big deal. They certainly were in Scripture, and it's a place where we find closeness with the divine and a vision filled with blessings that are carried back down. The Bible records mountaintop moments. Moses received the 10 Commandments at the top of the mountain. We have in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus giving the people some of his greatest wisdom in the Sermon on the Mount. And then later, Jesus' face shines like the sun on top of a mountain as awestruck disciples watch him converse with Moses and Elijah. Mountains are set apart. They are sacred. And in the book of Isaiah, they offer us an image of the true expansiveness of God's vision to our world. This part of Isaiah that we heard from today, Isaiah 65, is part of 3rd Isaiah. Isaiah 56 through 66, these chapters make up this 3rd Isaiah, where the soundtrack changes from oracles of judgment and pessimism about how people are living to promises of restoration and peace at every level of existence. 3rd Isaiah simply means that another prophet came along and used Isaiah's name to keep his message alive. The message we hear is not intended to be a new heaven and a new earth that comes as a result of the former creation being completely destroyed. Rather, 3rd Isaiah suggests God's transformation of the old into something new, teeming with God's delight, desire, and greatest joy. As we talked about last week, God is renewing all things with God's people and God's creation. This holy mountain moment best describes this movement of the new arising from the destruction of exile, violence, instability, and lack of relationship with God. The new takes us to whole new heights. The people are promised freedom from the threat of invasion and attack, economic stability, because the land will give provision for all, and lives of blessing. These speeches were first heard by the earliest of the people of Judah returning to Jerusalem after the exile. Everything in the city needs to be rebuilt and reimagined so as to take shape as a whole new society. And what Isaiah would suggest is in obedience to God. The time is right for convincing people to be part of God's new vision of reality. God's vision and promises are also relevant to us, needing to believe in God's capacity to reform and to transform and to make new that which is most wrought with harm. The new reminds us of dignity and integrity in its fundamental forms. The Holy Mountain is both heaven here on earth and a realm that exists beyond our current one. The harmony suggested in this new heaven in which the wolf and the lamb can come together, redeemed by love, and created to work alongside. Are we able to see this? Are we able to do this? The imagery could certainly have been seen as rhetorical, perhaps even childish. Some would even say this image cannot and should not exist. It defies the order of things. Well, I don't know about you, I like defying the order of things. I like hearing the words of children's books that inspire us to use our creative hands to find purpose and meaning. The time has come for us to value our earth and to value humanity and to value our sky and our mountain. It is time to trudge up that holy mountain, and there will be days where we will look back wanting things to be the way they used to be because we believed it was easier. And yet, we know otherwise. We know there is more to God's vision than just this. So let's go up that mountain, my friends. Let's be more than just a passive paperweight. I want to see what God has in store for us. And this means, however, that we're going to have some uncomfortable conversation with friends and family. This means we need to be informed voters and then go vote. This means that we need to look at our lives and evaluate our words and actions and see how they align. This means we go and get vaccinated and help others to get vaccinated. This means we seek ways to care for our earth as individuals and as communities. This means we need to look at our mission as a faith community. And are we living out Christ's call to discipleship? God keeps speaking to us, and God still has hope in us. That is truly amazing. God has not lost sight of what God's people can do for each other and the planet in which we live. God has a dream. Now let's make it a reality. Amen.